Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole and today I'm going to talk about my favorite books or finding favorites, finding favorite authors. I don't know. Let me just talk about what's been going on. So recently I've been thinking about what makes a book one of my favorite things. Does it have to do with the author and something specific about their writing style? Does it have to do with the genre or the topics discussed or that kind of thing? And I really have no clue. And so what I ended up doing was I decided to make an Excel spreadsheet, as people do when they have questions about things in life. And I decided to organize it based on all of my 5-star books that I've ever read that I've logged into the Story Graph, which is like the book sorting reading log type app that I use. And this is not sponsored by them. Um, but I put everything onto this spreadsheet based on the name, the title of the book, who the author was, what genre the story graph had said it was part of, or that I thought it was part of, um, what book award, if any, it had won or been longlisted or shortlisted for, the genre of the book. Did I say that already? I think I did. Also, what topics were mainly discussed as central ideas in the book, and then I sorted it all. And I found that there were a couple of reoccurring themes. And today I'm going to talk about specifically the authors that I found came up over and over again. And by and large, I was able to narrow it down to 3 different categories of authors. And I decided to divide these sections by star names, or types of stars, I guess. The age of stars? I don't know astronomy, so you tell me. Anyway, I have 3 categories that the authors that I have given 5 stars fall into. Or not the authors, but the books that I've given 5 stars to. So I have authors that I want to try again, and those are my nebulas. Those new to me authors that, a new star has come to light in them. I have given 5 stars to authors that I've read multiple times, like once or twice usually, and those are my proto stars. They're like amazing stars that are in the making. And then there's my stable stars, the suns in my life, the authors that I read over and over again and I have absolutely loved. So, where did my 5-star reads fall into this? Well, for stable stars, I actually only had 2 authors. This kind of surprised me, and I have to be honest, I'm not sure if it's just because I don't tend to reread the same author that frequently or not, but this was a lot lower than I thought it was going to be. I had 3 protostar authors, so these are all authors that I have read at least twice and have given at least 2 of their books 5 stars. For the stable stars, I had to have given at least 3 of their books 5 stars. And then for nebulas, I actually had a lot of authors that I had given at least 1 5-star to. Most of them were authors that I haven't read more than 1 book from because it's not something that I really pay attention to, but I want to start paying attention to that. I want to know if there are authors out there that I can just buy their work and it's guaranteed going to give me a 5-star or at least a 4-star or a really good read every single time. So let me share with you what these authors are, because there's not that many of them, despite the fact that it was a very long list of 5-star reads. Again, most of them fell in as nebulas, so ones that I guess at some point I'm going to try another work of theirs. But for now, I'm going to start by talking about the stable stars. So these are, it sounds like horse stables, but stables for stars. Anyway, I'm going to start with the authors that I have given multiple 5 stars to. There are 2 of them. If you watch my channel a lot, you can probably guess who they are. One of them is Charles Dickens, the other one is Wilkie Collins, which is interesting because in real life they knew each other and were pretty decent friends for quite a while. So, what can I say about them? For Charles Dickens, I have given 4 works of his 5 stars. I really like the writing style he has, the characters that he builds, the stories and plot lines that he gets. I haven't given all of his books 5 stars. There are some that just aren't my favorite, but he's a pretty reliable win for me most of the time. And with that, I also have one of his books that is my favorite book of all time. And in fact, I have a whole little shrine to the book right there. It's David Copperfield. And yeah, everything in this little square right here is all David Copperfield. Really great book. Really, really enjoyed it for a lot of different reasons. And yeah, so I own more works by Charles Dickens. I am starting to realize which books of his there are that I really love versus the ones that like I still think are good, but just aren't my personal favorite. So of the handful that I have left, I'm pretty sure the vast majority of them are going to be 4 or 5 stars for me. And that's pretty exciting. As for Wilkie Collins, this is where the numbers get really interesting. I have actually given works by Wilkie Collins 5 stars more frequently than Charles Dickens. In fact, Wilkie Collins, I have 5 books of his that I have given 5 stars to. Now, I don't know if that's because I've read more works by Wilkie Collins than Charles Dickens. I'll put up on the screen how many books I've read of each of theirs. But either way, I do find that overall, I tend to prefer so far all of Wilkie Collins's books over Charles Dickens. Like between the two, I can say if I pick up a random book by each of them, I'm probably definitely going to give Wilkie Collins like a 4, 4.5, 5 stars. Charles Dickens, there's still a few that I'm not sure will do it for me. So that is kind of interesting, especially since at the end of the day, Charles Dickens wrote the book that's like my favorite book I've ever read so far. So I don't know what to make of that, but those are two that are like solid wins for me each and every time. So now let's talk about some of the nebulas, some of the newest authors or new to me authors that I've read that I've ended up getting 5 stars. I found that the easiest way for me to sort of divide these up and talk about them are the ones that are classics versus the ones that are more modern works of literature or written since the 70s. And so I'll start by talking about the classics, and maybe I'll have a little graphic that I can put up on the screen for you of the books that I read by each of these authors. At least one of them, well, or the one that was a 5 star read for me. So for classics, I have Alexandre Dumas, Daphne du Maurier, EM Forster, and John Steinbeck. Now, one of the interesting things that I'm noticing for these nebulas that are classics is that, with the exception of Alexandre Dumas, they are all in like the early 1900s, which is very interesting. I don't know why that happened, but that's how it has worked out. And as you can see on the screen, you can see which works of theirs it is that I have enjoyed. I do have for each of them, I think, at least one more book that I own. Though all of them have multiple books that I would really like to read. I have pretty decently high hopes for these classic authors, but you never know. As for more contemporary authors, there were definitely a few on this list that surprised me that I had forgotten about, and some that I don't even feel like I hear people talk about that frequently. But on this list, there's Octavia E. Butler. I feel like that's a really well-known one. I will put up on the screen the one of hers that I really enjoyed and gave the 5 stars to. There's also Erin Morgenstern. I feel like she's pretty well known for the Night Circus. I also have Kei Miller. I read his work, I think, just last year and really enjoyed it. His book, Augustown, really surprised me. There's also Jason Mott, who's also a author of a book that I thought was fabulous, and I'm surprised I don't hear more about. Like I said, Nebula is a category where I have the most 5 stars by people I've read books from only once, but after looking at that list, these are the authors that I'm most excited about reading one more book. Or at the very least, they have another book that I really want to try. And I'll put those up on the screen so that you can see what those are. And then finally, I have my proto-stars. Those are the authors that are somewhere in between. I've read 2 books of theirs. I've given each of those books 5 stars. Maybe I've read a third or fourth book by them, but haven't found another 5 star read. But they still each have at least one other book, if not more, that I want to give a try and that I'm hoping to find another 5 star out of. And I'm really expecting I will love another work of theirs. So the first author is Yoko Ogawa. I read The Memory Police. This book really surprised me. I really enjoyed it, and it even freaked me out a little bit, which I was surprised by. I think I was so scared by one moment in that book, though, and saw that she did have other works that were horror that I was like, no way am I trying those next. So I actually found a work by her that was like a much sweeter, softer story, if you will, and that was The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. And this is a book that is about a housekeeper and a math professor, and I really enjoy math and thinking about math. It's not a very long book. It sounded like a very heartwarming story, and it was, and I absolutely loved this book. And it was also a 5-star read for me. So then I was like, okay, I've definitely got to keep trying more of her work. I like her storytelling. I like her writing. And so I have picked up The Diving Pool, which is a collection of 3 novellas. Now, these do sound like they're a little bit on the darker side, so I'm a little concerned about that. But it says that they're a trio of novellas about love, motherhood, fertility, obsession, and how even the most innocent gestures contain a hairline crack of cruel intent. I don't know how this is going to work out for me, but I am noticing that it's blurbed on the front by Hilary Mantel, the author of Wolf Hall. And she says that Ogawa is original, elegant, and very disturbing. I would totally agree with that. So now I'm a little scared to read these 3 novellas, but I really want to. She also has a newer work out. I don't recall the title of it, but I'll put it up on the screen. And that the plot of that novel also sounds really interesting. So yeah, I can't wait to get to more of her. So I really need to focus on that and getting more of her work on my TBR. And it doesn't mean that if I don't give this a 5-star, I'm done with her. That's not the case for any of these authors. It just means that, you know, if it's not at least a 4-star, I'll probably still try another book by her, but either might get a recommendation from somebody or might get the book out of my library. So the next author I have to talk about is Connie Willis. I have 2 works by her that I have given 5 stars for, which again is why she's in this category. The first one I read was To Say Nothing of the Dog. This book contains time travel back to the Victorian period, and there's like a mystery kind of trying to be solved. This is probably the only book that I've read that has a bit of amnesia in it that I thought was enjoyable and great and absolutely hilarious. This whole book is hilarious, and she just keeps you reading. The pacing is so fast and so interesting. There was one scene I wasn't sure I was going to make it through because I was laughing so hard I was crying and couldn't actually physically read the paper. And so after reading this, I knew I had to read another work by her, especially when I realized this was book 2 in a series. But fortunately, the series was not reliant on the first book. It's more like a book that just takes place in the same universe as book 1. And so naturally, I picked up book 1, which is the Doomsday book by Connie Willis. And I gave this a 5-star and absolutely loved it. But because it was so devastatingly sad and moved me, I ugly cried at the end of this book. And that alone impresses me with Connie Willis, that you can write 2 books in the same series and get me to ugly cry or to at least cry in both books, but on totally opposite ends of the emotional spectrum, which was, I don't know, I've never had that happen before, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I didn't enjoy ugly crying, but I enjoyed both the books immensely. So the next book that I have by her that I'm going to read is The Road to Roswell, because I definitely like crying from laughter more than sadness. It says the level-headed Francine arrives in Roswell, New Mexico for her college roommate's UFO-themed wedding, complete with a true believer bridegroom. She can't help but roll her eyes at all the wide-eyed talk of aliens, which obviously don't exist. Imagine her surprise then when she's abducted by one. And I would go on, but you know, this is not a book review and I haven't read this yet, but there's stuff on the back that just sounds like it's going to be ridiculous and funny. And if so, Connie Willis can make me laugh out loud. And that's what I'm hoping to get out of this. So I really hope I enjoy this, because if I do, I know that she has a pretty decent catalog of other works. But it's interesting because she writes sci-fi, and yeah, I guess it's maybe on the lighter side of sci-fi, but I feel like I rarely hear anybody talk about her, even though, as far as I know, her books are still being published. Like she's still writing today. In fact, I think Roswell came out in 2024. Yeah, so this is a very recent release. So I'm surprised that somebody who has a science fiction masterwork isn't discussed more for that masterwork and doesn't seem to be discussed more for the current work either. But maybe I just don't watch enough science fiction channels. I don't know. And then I do have a third author whose works I really want to keep digging into, and that would be Anthony Doerr. The first book I read by him was All the Light We Cannot See, because I feel like it just got hyped up when he won the Pulitzer Prize, and I really enjoyed that book, even though I'm not the biggest fan of historical fiction. I was a little surprised it was hyped as much as it was, but I did think it was really good. And then I read Cloud Cuckoo Land. And then it made me question everything because hands down, I think this is the better of the two books. This book is amazing. And honestly, until I read David Copperfield, I probably would have said this was my favorite book of all time. So sorry, Cloud Cuckoo Land, you did get beat out, but I don't think people talk about this book enough. I don't think enough people have read this book. Everybody I know who has actually read this book really loves it. And I think the thing about the book is it's a strange title, it's a strange cover, and the back of the book, which talks about 3 different timelines and points of view, sounds really strange. It's not quite as bizarre as it sounds, and it's actually really beautifully written, a really lovely story, and just made me go, this is somebody who I want to keep reading more of. So I do have, I think, one, maybe 2 other books by Anthony Doerr, and one of them is about Grace. And this is actually on my current TBR at the time that I'm filming this. And I did attempt reading this and made it through the first 30 some odd pages of the book. And oh my gosh, was I bored to tears. I mean, I was so bored it left me tired the rest of the day. So sadly, I am DNFing that. Yeah, that's it. Those are the 3 that are like my proto stars that I want to keep working on and see if they can become all-time favorite authors, up there with Charles Dickens and Wilkie Collins, which sounds kind of obnoxious and extreme considering how well known and loved both of those first other 2 authors are. So that's it. I just wanted to share with you guys, kind of the process that I'm going through of thinking about like what makes a book a favorite for me and like what I'm looking at and considering. How about you? Do you have favorite authors? Is that how you figure out, books that you're going to love or make predictions for 5-star reads? Do you base it on something else? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll talk to you next time.